In this video I'll talk about the warehouse portion of the model and how it functions. So all requisitions with an attribute of ASL less than 271 flow through the warehouse. And the first place they go is into warehouse issue. And the purpose of the warehouse issue block is to determine to take the required quantity, compare it against the stock on hand, and then make a decision about how that item is filled or handled. So the first thing is we get the attributes of ASL and the quantity required, and we check the on-hand balance. Now I must describe that the on-hand balance refers to a table, a global array actually within the model that imports this data into the on-hand and the other warehouse quantities, and also initializes at the beginning of every run so that it starts over. We have startup data. When we begin the run, we don't have any items out, so nothing is on order. Not all quantities begin at 100%, and all this is based on historical data as well. But the assumption is that there's no items out on order. So the first determination that's made is if the equation of on-hand minus quantity required, if that equation if the new on-hand is less than the reorder point, that's the first determination that's made, and that's diagrammed right down here. This is the quantity required minus the quantity on hand. You can see in this case it was -14. This is where the simulation gets the on-hand or the reorder point value. To do that comparison down here, new on-hand versus reorder point, and this refers to up here. So if the answer is yes, that the new on-hand is greater than the reorder point, that would mean that the requisition has been fulfilled and it flows through. This block sets the FF value to 1, meaning it was filled by ASL. Then this computes the SSA processing time, which is 1 with standard deviation of 0.25, normal distribution. And then the requisition flows out. If the new on hand is less than the reorder point value, we go to another determination, which asks if the new on hand value is greater than or equal to 0. If the answer is yes, it is greater than or equal to 0, that means that the order itself has been met, but we also need a replenishment requisition to fulfill stock on hand. So we're less than a reorder point, meaning it's time to reorder, but we've also fulfilled the order itself. So that triggers a replenishment order. This right here is the original order which processes on. It's been fulfilled. Actually, this takes it back over here. Again, we set the FF value, meaning ASL filled, to 1. Compute SSA processing time, and then it flows on in the simulation. If the new on-hand value is less than 0, meaning we have a negative value, the requisition comes down here to another part of the warehouse processing. So if we have a replenishment item, what we need to determine is the overall TPSD, time priority, source of fill, and depot determination for that. That determination is different if it were in time period 1 or time period 2, and those are both discrete probability tables. So similar to the requirements generator, this is time period 1 and this is time period 2, and we make that determination again based on the time period of the simulation. All requisitions come back together and then flow out into the warehouse order out determination block, at which time they merge with all of the negative value requisitions coming out of the warehouse issue block. So the point of the warehouse order out determination block is to figure what is the value of that order going higher. So the first thing that's determination is made is which is greater, the current amount out for that ASL number, or the difference of the requisition objective value minus the on-hand value. And so the point of this determination is to make sure that we don't have negative values where we wouldn't have negative values. So we get the reorder point value, that happens here, and we get the current amount out value, and then we compare them in this equation block. We make the determination here in this block. So if the current amount that we have out for that item is greater than the difference between the reorder requisition objective and the on-hand balance, then we come down here and our new order equals the current amount out minus the difference between the requisition objective and the on-hand balance. If that is not the case, and the difference between the requisition objective and the on-hand balance is greater than the amount out, we go up here, and the new order is equal to the difference between requisition objective and on-hand balance and the amount out. So in both cases, we update the new quantity out, and we also assign that value as the new attribute under quantity required for that requisition. And then that order continues on in the simulation. So basically we have inputs of two types. One is the replenishment items, and the other is the customer's original item which was unfulfilled combined with any sort of replenishment, and that retains a priority 1. Replenishment alone is a priority 3. The computation of quantity required, the updating of the quantity out, is the same for both types of requisitions, which is why they're merged right here. That's all for orders coming in, and then or orders leaving the warehouse. So they come in and then leave the warehouse. For orders coming in, that means that so we've got orders coming in. We may have the returning of a replenishment item. that we had to order that comes back in, and a couple other sources. So if we didn't have it on hand, so the first thing, like before, we determine the ASL attribute, and we take a look at a couple things. We get the current amount on hand, and we update that. So the current amount on hand plus the quantity that was required gives us a new on-hand quantity, and that is written right here to update the warehouse. And then we've got to update what's currently out, and so we do the opposite. We take what's currently out, we take the quantity required, and so we have the current out minus what came in, which is the quantity required. And then that is updated here to the warehouse stocks. And once that is done, that requisition continues on to another part of the simulation for computation. So that concludes the description of the warehouse block. Basically 3 sections that cover requisitions that flow in, and then 1 section that describes what happens when requisitions return to the warehouse.